My brother, Ben.
What's up, my
Ben
guy?
Chung in the building, a.k.a. BTek.
BTek. That is my dancer name.
Dude, hey, man.
It's funny how dancers have like these little aliases, but I guess it's like a hip-hop thing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I actually like it, though. BTek, do people like ask you, that's what they do with like BTek, with Honda and stuff like that?
That's actually my politically correct explanation for that. There is a non-PC version of that, so I'll just keep that to myself. But yes, like the VTech engine is what it is.
So you just like, you're just like cruising all of a sudden, like once you get going, it's like you don't stop.
I guess so, man. Powerful engine. I keep going.
Yeah, dude, I love it, man. Well, Ben, dude, I appreciate you driving all the way from LA, right?
Yes.
Coming here to the Parables, to the studio here in the Inland Empire. Guys, it's a true honor and privilege. Me and Ben have been so busy, and we had to reschedule this thing like 3 times.
We've been trying for a minute. When you asked me this week, I was like, so the funny thing is, today is actually a homie of mine's birthday. Well, he's celebrating it today.
Yeah.
And he was like, yo, I might go on like this hike. And I looked at my calendar. I was like, dang, I have a podcast. I was like, yo, is there any way that we could push the like hike back to like in the afternoon? He's like, yeah, do your thing, man. Like I was like, all right,
thank
cool.
God.
So I was like, I'm not gonna reschedule again because we've already been doing this. We've been playing calendar chess. So
you know what's crazy is usually when I have a podcast guest, it's usually like, and I'm used to it now. Like they reschedule with me, and it's usually on them. But then the last time, I think it was me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's why when I texted you, remember, I was like, hey, bro. No matter what, if there's an earthquake, if there's a zombie apocalypse, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Speaking of earthquake, did you feel the earthquake the other day?
It was in Compton, right?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, so I just got back in town the night before, Thursday night from the Bay. We had a show out there. Mm-hmm. And while we were in the Bay, we got like all of our phone alarms went off, the Amber Alerts.
Yeah.
And it said, that was the 30th anniversary of the 89 San Francisco earthquake, the one that happened during the World Series.
Then would they?
I don't know. It was just like, and then
we all tactic.
Yeah, I was just like, what? It was like this, remembering the 89 earthquake. We're like, whoa, that's crazy. And then so we fly home that night. So I get home Thursday night. I'm in bed. It's like a little bit past midnight. I'm about to fall asleep. And I kid you not, the house starts shaking.
Damn.
And immediately my mind was like, I swear we just got that Amber Alert today from the 89 earthquake. I'm like, please.
Conspiracy,
Yeah,
right?
I'm like, please don't keep shaking. It was like a little rock, and then it stopped. And then
it was at nighttime?
It was like 12:19 a.m. So technically Friday morning, but
Okay, so that's probably what you do. I was in LA because I was doing my conference, but obviously I was asleep. But I did see that, and that's crazy because why don't they have like that for like 9/11 or something? You know what I'm saying?
I don't know,
but
man.
for earthquake, that's crazy.
I find that, when things like that happen, I'm like, wait a second. I know I got some sort of messaging about this like earlier in the day. It's funny how that stuff happens, man.
Yeah, it's not, dude. LA is pretty crazy. How long you been there in LA now?
I'm born and raised out there. So I grew up, I was born in the San Fernando Valley. I pretty much live out in the Valley my majority of my childhood. And then I went to UCI. I was Irvine for college. Cool. And then after I graduated, moved back to LA, kind of lived all around LA from like, Culver City, Santa Monica, Van Nuys. And then I spent a chunk of years in Vegas. I was out there dancing with the Jabbawockeez for our show. And then I moved back to LA in 2014 and been there ever since.
Been there. Yeah. How was it like growing in LA? Obviously, where you grow up kind of molds you and gives you that identity. Yeah. But I mean, like to me, living in the IE, in the Inland Empire, I always tell myself, man, I could never live there just because I'm so used to, not that lifestyle. Obviously, like the congestion, the traffic, always like the honking.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, what about just growing up in the hood and everything?
Yeah, I mean, the Valley is also very different from LA, but my parents. They worked in Koreatown, so I was always out in LA with them when they were working, and then we would go back to the San Fernando Valley, which is essentially like a suburb. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think for me, because that was my life, like I grew up there, there's nothing for me to really compare it to in terms of like, oh, this is too fast paced, or this is too congested, or there's too much traffic. I'm thinking this is just life. This is what I grew up with. Yeah. But I think what I do appreciate about LA is that it's a melting pot. I mean, it's a destination where people come to for all kinds of industries. You know what I mean? And not only from industry, but like, you know, culturally and it's like an ethnic melting pot as well. I think, you know, just seeing so much diversity, it gave me a little bit, or not a little bit, but a lot of awareness, I guess, of differences in people, and learning to appreciate that and learn from that. And I think it was weird because when I left LA, when I lived in Vegas for almost 5 years, that was the first time I was able to compare LA to anywhere else.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, dang, LA's way better than
Really?
I mean, no disrespect to Vegas folks. I love my Vegas folks, but like, I think there's a difference of energy that I realized that I thrived off of living in LA.
Well, it's home too.
It's home, but I think also, I didn't even realize in terms of like my vocation, like what type of career that I would really end up being in. It wasn't like as a kid I was expecting to be a dancer, you know what I mean? And that was never really in, you know, my thought processes. But, you know, as I found myself in the entertainment industry and in particular dance, and like there's a lot of obviously creativity and artistry and that goes into that. And I was able to kind of get that kind of easily living in LA because everyone is kind of on that tip, or not not everyone, but it's very prevalent in LA. Yeah. Whereas in Vegas, I felt like there was a big lack, you know. Like I think Vegas there's so much industry there, but people who are in that industry, like they only kind of stay in that bubble of whatever industry.
I kind of want to say it's like more industry driven.
Yeah,
where LA seems a little more ethnic and art and cultural driven.
Yeah, but I mean, there's still industry there. But I think in LA, you know, in places like New York, I would imagine is kind of similar. Is that there is a constant search for newness, like
makes sense,
daily. You know what I mean? So it's like if you're in the industry of fashion, you're like, what's the next thing that we're gonna do? What's the next collaboration? What's the next thing that's gonna change the game? Whether it's dance, it's like, how do we switch it up here? Like, you know, instead of just dancing in front of a camera the way that we're used to doing it, like how can we flip it? How do we make it more cinematic? You know what I mean? So there's always this like pursuit of just flipping the script, you know? And I think that was something that I really enjoyed. I'm like, dude, I love that. And so when I was in Vegas, I felt like there was a lack of that. Like everybody's very comfortable with what they do. And because let's say money is good, no one's thinking that I need to change anything. Like, well, what do I need to change it for? The formula works. And it's just like, dang, this is boring. You know, for me, I was like, I can't do this, you know?
No,
so
it makes sense. Like if you think about it, a lot of the pioneers stem from LA. Like, you know what I mean? Like in every industry, what they're doing, they're like almost, I don't want to use the word manipulative, but they're just like the architect as far as taking it to the next level. Like you said, like what's new? You get what I'm saying?
Right.
But so talk to me a little bit. So growing up in LA, obviously, so we kind of skipped a little introduction, but obviously Ben, you know, legendary choreographer, you know, was part of Jabbawockeez, now with Kinjaz, doing lots of great things. You know, as far as being that artist that you are, where did you find kind of the inspiration as far as like your LA roots? Was there anything in particular that got you into dancing as well, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, culture and how you grow up will have a lot to do with like the things that you're exposed to and the things that you find interest in. I think, you know, growing up in LA, I think hip hop was just a big, like I was just around it all the time, you know, and I personally just gravitated to the sound of hip hop and the culture of it and like the aesthetics of it. And with dance in particular, that was always something that I would, you know, watch on TV, you know, whether it's like MTV when they actually played music videos, right? Like, and I would watch it and I was like, yeah, it's so cool, so entertaining. But I never thought that I would personally do it myself. But I always loved watching it. And it wasn't until high school where I actually secretly started to like try it because my sister actually took me to my first K-pop concert. and I was very reluctant to go. I was like, this is whack. I'm not going to like this. But then I was there. I was like, this is dope, you know? And just watching the choreography on stage, and it made me think that, you know, maybe I could do it. And so I would just kind of practice on my own in my room. And then I found out that there was a kid at my church that was kind of doing the same thing as me, like watching these K-pop videos and practicing in his room. And I was like, yo, man, maybe we should like practice together, you know? So we would like go over to each other's places and teach each other these like K-pop like covers. Basically, you're just like copying the choreography.
Yeah.
But, you know, from there, I just kind of started to get into more or try to like understand like what else is out there outside of this like K-pop stuff. And there was the dance community that I started to get exposed to that was big in the like mainly like it kind of started in like SoCal, like you know, the colleges out there like UC Irvine, Cal State Fullerton. They would have these dance teams, and then I found out that there was all these other like dance companies like Culture Shock LA and San Diego, and they would have these competition showcases that were like these satellite competitions pretty much up and down California.
Nice.
And
so you started getting exposed to like the community and
exactly,
like the groups and stuff. So man, that's awesome. So when did you started like dancing a little bit, and then you know you had some homies I'm sure you met along the way. When did dancing, I guess, start to become a little serious for you? Actually, you know what? I want to take it back. Well, maybe I might be jumping forward as well. What did family and friends kind of think about like that direction that you were going? Like, did they know that you would always be that type? You know, maybe that artistic type?
No, it's funny. I was actually a very shy kid growing up too, and I don't think anyone would have expected for me to pursue a career in dance and entertainment.
Yeah.
Initially, I don't think for my parents, they didn't take it seriously. They just thought it was a hobby.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, when you're doing something in high school, that's fine because you're still young, you're a kid.
Yeah.
And then once I went to college, I was still doing it, and then there was a little bit of concern. It's like, okay, well, you're still like going to your classes and studying and all that. And I'm like, yeah. But I'm still dancing. And then I graduate college and I'm still doing it. And I'm doing it like kind of heavier too.
Like more time
so
and
then
effort
that, you know, my mom definitely had that conversation with me many times with like, hey, so when's this dancing stuff going to stop? And, you know, when are you going to get like a real job? And I had many arguments with my mom. I was like, Mom, this is a real, like, this can be my career. Like, watch, like, I'm going to make something of it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until we got on TV with Jabbawockeez for ABDC season 1 on MTV that that was the first time she actually came and watched. Because she's never
she was there?
Yeah, she's never
awesome,
came
bro.
to a show before, you know, when we would do these live shows. She's like, okay, have fun, whatever. But I was like, Mom, we're on TV and we're competing and we're doing well. And that she came to the show to watch it. And that was when she was like, keep doing it. I support it.
Yeah, it's like they finally get exposed and they see like, oh wow, there's, you know, it's just something new to them, right? Yeah. It's a different generation.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing with me, like with this podcasting thing. Like, you know, my parents were kind of like, okay, you know, kind of troll like, oh, he has an interview today, kind of thing, you know what I'm saying? But then you kind of, you know, I guess they start to see it build a little bit, and that's awesome, man. Yeah. At least the support is there when they finally start to realize it, right? But dude, so you started dancing, you started getting exposed to like the groups, you know, the different colleges and things like that. Did you, before Jabbawockeez formed, did you start competing with a different group, or like, you know what I mean? Like, how did what led to eventually to Jabbawockeez?
Yeah, so the dance community it's one of those like big, small worlds, meaning that like now it's huge. I think, you know, it's global now, but when it started, it was kind of birthed, you know, at least on the West Coast, it was really birthed in California. Yeah. And in particular with the colleges out here in SoCal. And with that, like, if you were in that scene, whenever there was these events, everybody who was into that would come out to these shows. So people would come out from the Bay Area to San Diego to LA and everywhere in between. And, you know, people would even come from out of state if they're really into it.
Did everybody know each other almost as if it's like a small village?
Exactly. And I think because you congregate at the same shows, people start to like meet each other and remember. He's like, hey, I met you at Vibe, or hey, I met you at Bust a Groove. And and so that was where like friendships started to form. So I started dancing. My first team, I guess, within the dance community, the SoCal dance community, was ACA Hip Hop, and that was a team out of UCLA. And I wasn't even a student at UCLA, but you know, I heard that there was an audition there, and I had danced in a show there for like a Korean culture night, and some cats from ACA Hip Hop were at that show, and they came up to me like, hey, we have an audition. You should come and audition for ACA Hip Hop. Mm-hmm. And for me, I was just like, I'm down, like, because all I wanted to do was dance, so it didn't matter who it was with.
Yeah, you just wanted to be a part of, involved with it.
And so I started with ACA Hip Hop, and from there I joined there was an alumni team basically from ACA Hip Hop called DVS, so people who had kind of graduated from college and moved on from ACA, but they wanted to keep dancing, so they formed like kind of an alumni team, DVS. And then I rocked with them for a bit until I transferred to UC Irvine for college. Okay. And that was when I learned that Kaba Modern was there. And I had already seen Kaba in a few of the showcases. I was like, dang, man, this team's freaking sick. So, knowing that I was at the school that they were from, I was like, man, I gotta get on this team. So I auditioned for Kaba Modern, danced with them for a little bit over a year until I graduated. And then I moved back to LA. And when I moved back to LA was when I left Kaba just because the drive was crazy to stay on that team. But I learned about the dance industry in LA, so I started to go to auditions and kind of started teaching out in LA. Mm-hmm. But I didn't really feel like the dance industry, the commercial industry, was what I wanted to do, because the community was where I was rooted in, and like I enjoyed that aspect of like stage performance to just the whole concept of our community being tight knit.
I get the sense of that, like we were talking about earlier before the recording, like the people, you're about people. And I could see kind of how you always get drawn back to LA. Yeah.
And I was teaching a class out in San Diego where Kevin Brewer from the Jabbawockeez, he actually came and took my class, and I was tripping because I was already a huge Jabbawockeez fan. And he came and told me that he was going to start his own dance company called Super Galactic Beat Manipulators. It's a crazy name.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy.
But I was just like, and he's just, dude, would you be down to be a part? I was like, hell yeah, like I'm down. And mind you, this is San Diego, and I live in LA. That's easily a 2-hour drive just one way. So driving out to San Diego twice a week from the Valley, I was down for it because that was just how much I loved dancing and how much I wanted to be a part of this thing. After rocking with SGBM for a couple of years was when I kind of just started kicking it more with the Jabbawockeez guys. And in 2007 was when they actually asked me to be a part of the crew. Nice. So I joined them in 2007, and I rocked with them. We from there we did America's Got Talent, ABDC, got the Vegas show, and did the whole thing up until like Vegas. Yeah. And so that was up until 2014. And in 14, I was just life was just going, and I felt like I needed to get back to my roots in LA.
Because you were so far gone from LA.
Yeah, right? And I missed everything about home. I guess that the case of homesick was real, and amongst just other life things that were going on, I decided that I wanted to come back to LA. And, when I came back, dance was actually very, I was not sure if I wanted to keep dancing, because I felt like a lot of things that were happening in my life or things that were going on were like a result of me being so heavily invested into dance that I was like, maybe I need to change it up, and
so you kind of feel like you spent all your life with dancing, and you kind of felt like you wanted to experience the other parts of life.
Kind of, and even with, and I went to college, I studied film. I had a film studies degree, and so I was like, maybe I need to go back to that. And so I came back here just kind of open to figure out what I wanted to get back into, but God has a very funny way of putting things back into your path when you think you're done. And so dance was very much, it was very evident that like I wasn't done with it. And so Mike Song and Anthony Lee, who are the founders of Kinjaz, friends of mine I met Anthony in college. I've known Mike since he was in high school, so we have a deep history there too. So when I came back to LA, just kind of reconnecting with homies and just kind of seeing what's up with people, it was kind of serendipitous timing where they were like, we're actually trying to put heavy focus into building Kinjaz, and they asked if I would be down to be a part of that. And more than wanting to be a part of another dance crew, because that was not in my plans or desires at all. It was more of who they were as people and who they were as leaders, and obviously friends of mine that I know, And there was a level of like, I believe in you guys and I believe in how you build vision. I think that's the thing that I'm most on board with, is that vision.
And something fresh too, it sounds like a little bit. It was different, you know what I'm saying? Again, going back to your home roots, and they're very community based, like you said. They do like some you guys do some like almost like nonprofit or like stuff community driven, right? You give back to the kids.
We've done like recently there was the Amazon rainforest relief. We threw a workshop at the Kinjaz dojo, which is our studio out in Monterey Park. And all the proceeds that we raised to that, we just donated to that. So I mean, anything that we can do in terms of, and again, not for the sake of like doing it because it's a quote unquote good deed, but things that we're passionate about, and things that we actually, have, not to say we don't care about other things, but things that we have a connection to, you know what I mean? We'll do what we can to, give to it, or, to benefit whatever kind of cause. So,
I kind of want to go back just a little bit, because I feel like obviously, clearly it was a pivotal point in your life. Obviously, when Jabbawockeez was skyrocketing, one ABDC, which, by the way, I remember, man, that stomp the yard routine at the very end, and stuff. How did you feel, man? Like, because I feel like that was a very pivotal moment. Obviously, it was a moment in dance where it was like the pioneer of like, headlining Vegas and all stuff. How did that feel for you as Ben, the choreographer, the artist, the dancer?
Yeah, winning ABDC was a trip, man, and I still very vividly remember standing on that stage in the finale, and they were about to announce who the winner was, and like I remember just like standing there, and we had already prepped going into the show. We're like, win or lose, we're not here to win. I mean, obviously you're not there to lose, but it wasn't like if we lose the show, our life is over. We're like, we're here to represent who we are and to show the world what we do. And bigger than that, even, we were there to honor our fallen crew member, Gary G1 Kendall, rest in peace. He was the reason why we decided to even do the show in the first place. And he passed away right before the show started. And essentially his like last sort of wish for the crew was get on that show, win it, and change the world. And so we're like, there's no way that we're gonna not give it our best, so standing on that stage, we're like, dude, win or lose, we already know why we came here. And then when they announced the winner, they were like, as soon as I heard Jabbawockeez, like immediately I was just like, holy crap. And like, I started bawling, like, on the spot. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, we won this thing. And, it was obviously it was a great feeling, but I knew at that moment, I was like, man, I think like, sure, we put in the work, but this is bigger than us. This is bigger than just our crew. This is bigger than Jabbawockeez. I think there is something happening here that we're not even aware of. And, that was over 10 years ago. It's like 11 years ago now that I look back, which is crazy. What I've seen happen since the time that we won ABDC, what's happened to the world of entertainment culturally. Yeah, definitely. Asian Americans being perceived in a very different light, and now there is a stereotype of you're Asian, you must be able to dance, which was like, I don't think that was ever a thing before that. I'm like, shoot, I don't know, like I'm down to be a big part of why that's the case, like a positive stereotype. I don't know, but like, I don't think we were prepared for it, but like I remember that feeling very vividly, and I meditate, pretty much daily, and that's something that I go back to, that feeling, that moment, because that was a key moment in my life where I felt like empowered in a way where it wasn't like I did this, but I felt like I was in flow. Yeah. And I was powerful, man. In the right place, the right time, and God was the one that allowed all the fruits of that to kind of,
and all that, after. And for sure, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, winning there, and just like you said, with the flow and everything, it opened up new doors and what it's done. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so, obviously got the Vegas show. You guys are doing big things. what I'm very curious to know, and again, a lot of my questions come from curiosity because
Sure.
I want to learn more about you.
Yeah.
Is what do you think is probably the number one, maybe not the number one, maybe a few things if there is, that you learned about yourself and about the business being like before you went back to LA and started Kinjaz? Because obviously that was a big point in your dancing career as far as what it did. You know what I mean? What do you think are some of the biggest things you learned as Ben, the artist, the choreographer, and also Ben, the businessman now?
Yeah. You know, one thing that I've learned, you know, just in life, and I think I've learned a big chunk of it within the past like 10 years, right? Since ABDC. Yeah. Up until then, I never was just to be totally honest and transparent, I was never really a clear-minded, driven person in terms of like, this is my goal in life and I'm going to be this. Just growing up as a kid, like I was just kind of a punk kid, you know. I just kind of got myself into trouble, and you know, I was a skater as a kid, and I found myself gravitating towards whatever I felt like was fun. And whether it was skateboarding, whether it was being mischievous, or dance. And thank God that dance was the one that stuck and probably kept me out of a lot of the trouble side of things. But even with dance, it wasn't this clear thing. Like, I'm going to dance so that when, you know, 10 years from now, I'm going to have this company established. And after that, like, you know what I mean? Like, there was no clear vision. I was like, I'm just doing it
just for
because it's fun.
Yeah.
And I wasn't motivated in school. I wasn't, you wouldn't describe me as like this passionate, hardworking guy that's very driven to go chase his dreams and achieve. I was, if you would have known me then, you're just like, yeah, that's just the kid that's always skating or dancing or just doing something to just like keep himself out of trouble, I guess.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that was something that I maybe even kind of held on to, that kind of made me, without me even recognizing, maybe insecure in a lot of ways too. Because like, if you feel like all you're good for is just having fun, and you don't, I mean, not to say that my parents weren't encouraging me or anything like that, but like I never had this, I didn't have the straight A's in school to make me feel like I was smart, you know. I didn't have a cheering section where people are like, man, you're like, you've been helpful in this way or helpful in that way. If anything, it's just, wow, you're really good at dance, you know. So I was like, okay, well, I'm getting positive encouragement with this, so maybe I'll just stay in this.
Stick there,
where I'm getting,
stick onto that lane.
Like where I feel like I'm getting affirmation. But, you know, as we progressed into, you know, like winning the show and getting these amazing opportunities and landing a headlining show on the Las Vegas Strip, you know, in a
huge
major hotel, you know, like that was the first time where I was like, yo, we're actually doing something with this thing. Like who's done this in history?
Yeah.
And it made me start to realize like there is a career path here. And so I feel like I got a free admission to like the school of hard knocks of entertainment business, you know, and I became very curious at that point of like, how does all this stuff work, and how are we going to sustain this? How are we going to take this to the next level? And so what I learned about myself, because I never was able to like formulate it before, was when I actually care about something, I'll be obsessive over it, you know? And same. And I think a lot of like entrepreneurs will have a similar quality when they, like, Gary V's like that, the king of, you know, all entrepreneurs are, you know, looking at Gary Vee as like he's the GOAT, right? And he always says like, not everyone's meant to be an entrepreneur. Like you gotta love this thing. He's like, you gotta love it when it sucks.
You gotta love the grind.
Yeah, and so I think that's something that I found about myself, is that when I love something, even the hard times, even the times where things aren't moving, I'm just like, no, this is it. Like, this is what I'm doing, and I'm gonna figure it out. And so I think I learned a lot about my skills and my strengths. And as we were talking earlier before we started recording, I felt like more than my actual dance skills, you know, like, sure, they're good enough to get me places, but I think more than that, my ability to connect with people, and I genuinely realized, because, you know, as you talk about community and all that other stuff, I was like, why was it that I kept gravitating towards our dance community? Because I love the interactions with people. And I think with that, I've been able to just take that into every other space that I've been in my life, you know, whether that is in a business setting, in a meeting, or whether it's just grabbing coffee with somebody and chilling. And I think it's one and the same, you know, that you're dealing with a person in both scenarios. One maybe a little bit more formal and the other one maybe not. But then, like, I realize, you know, sure, it can turn into business, and that if that's what the goal is, but I realize it's not always about like, what are we going to do to make money together? But I feel like it's more important to like, yo, what's up? Like, who are you? And like, what's your life like? And it's like, you know, at that point, if we're connecting, it's like, yo, should we do something? Like, you know, let's do something.
The relationship's
you know?
built, you know what I'm saying?
And I think that to me has been some of the funnest things with, you know, my dance career is I've been able to interact with people of all different walks of life, in industries and all that, whether it be food, music, fashion, whatever. And I realized that people connect off of that interaction, and not necessarily like, what are you going to do for me? You know? And I think at that point, if you can do business that way, but it's not fun and it's not fulfilling. And like the general audience is not going to vibe with it because there's no actual vibe there. You know what I mean? And I realize like the connections and the way that I am able to interact with people has been probably the biggest strength and the quality that I've like kind of attained, or at least been able to recognize of myself, you know. And I haven't known that about myself as a kid. It's just kind of like in the past 10 years, it's kind of really like, whoa,
finally come together.
Yeah, I guess this really is.
See, I'm so glad I asked that question, because dude, like what I hear is like, at first you were doing dancing just for fun, you know what I'm saying? And then eventually, once you got exposed and you saw like, wow, this is a real thing, a new Ben evolved where you're like, wow, okay, now I'm curious, like, this is a business, you know what I'm saying? And you start learning about yourself, you start learning about the connections with people, and then you get drawn back. Like, it's crazy how like you would think you reach the top, but then after you reach the top, you know, to the sense like, wow, you won ABDC, but other stuff started to unfold, and then you got brought back to LA. You know what I'm saying? It's so powerful, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like as if you evolved a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you get drawn back to LA, obviously, and then you start Kinjaz, right? What was, I mean, you kind of highlighted it, but I feel like there's still more to it. What was really the vision with Kinjaz, with your other, you know, your friends that brought you into it?
Yeah. So Kinjaz was founded in 2010. Mike Song, Anthony Lee, they founded it, and it started with them as just a fun project. They just wanted to like get their homies together. Everyone that they've kind of danced with in the dance community, that were all a part of different teams too, they were like, yo, let's just get all of our homies. We'll get on stage. We'll perform at Vibe, which is a show at UCI at the time. And we'll just have like one last, because context was Anthony was about to graduate and, you know, get a job like in a different state. So he was like, I think this might be my last hurrah, you know, dancing. So let's just go out with a bang. And, you know, it ended up being like this. It was just, I was in the audience and watching it, you know. This is when I was already with Jabbawockeez, and I was at Vibe watching it. And I was like, this is game changing right now.
Yeah.
And it was just because, like, I can tell these guys are having a blast right now on stage. They're just doing crazy, crazy things that you're like, you can't do that in a dance community performance, but they're like, F it, we're going to do it, you know?
Yeah.
And I was just like, dang, this is fun. And so they got such a huge reception that they just decided to kind of keep it going. But it was only to, like, whenever we get the next opportunity to perform, we'll do it again then, and we'll have fun again. But so for like the first 4 years of Kinjaz, it was just that. It was just getting together for the occasional show with whoever is down and available, and we'll do it for fun.
And we'll rock it,
Yeah, and then, but in 2014 was where they had kind of both decided that, like, you know, and Mike and Ant were individually kind of pursuing their solo dance careers, teaching, and you know, kind of YouTube was heavy in that time. So they were like heavy focused on creating content for, you know, YouTube and all that. But they were kind of like wanting to bring it all back to be like, hey, it's not, I'd rather be doing all of this with my friends versus me doing it for myself, you know, traveling by yourself and all that. Like, sure, it can be cool, but it can get lonely and all that. So they're like, yo, how do we need to, like, one, create a sustainability for this livelihood. Like, you know, we're going to be, there's a better opportunity for us to create something big if we create something bigger than ourselves. So that was kind of that time where they wanted to kind of turn that focus from pursuing their solo careers to be like, hey, let's put that energy into Kinjaz and let's build this thing to be the biggest thing. And serendipitous timing was I had just moved back from Vegas to LA right in that pocket of time. And so right in the middle or in the beginning stages of them wanting to figure out, like, yo, how do we build Kinjaz, was when I came back into LA. So we reconnected. We went on this, like, road trip. You know, I met them up in, like, Grand Canyon, and you know, it was like this really, at first it was just like, yo, let's just chill. Let's, like, not even talk about, you know, Kinjaz. And I mean, at the time I was like, I'm unemployed. I'm out here in LA. I'm living life. I need to just clear my head. They're like, great, meet us at the Grand Canyon. We're gonna freaking just chill out, you know. And it was so much of that where we just were kind of just like just being homies and kicking it. And then the conversation of Kinjaz came up through that trip. And that was when they asked me, they were like, yo, so what's your next move? I'm like, honestly, I don't know. I think I might go back into, like, TV production or something. And then they're like, what about dance? I'm like, well, I don't know. I think I'm done, you know? And they're just like, bro, can we just say, like,
they're like, chill.
Yeah, they're like, can we just say what we think? They're like, okay, we respect whatever you feel like you need to do, but here's what we see in you. And, you know, they're, you know, talking about from what I've done, for, you know, even for them individually, how I've inspired them to, you know, having done what we've done with Jabbawockeez. And then they're just like, man, we feel like you just have so much more to give. It would just be a shame to just, like, stop that, you know? And so when I asked them about Kinjaz, I'm like, well, what is the vision of Kinjaz? Like, where are you guys, like, first of all, why? Like, why are you trying to do it? Like, what's the goal? And so, you know, as we, like, kind of just went into all these conversations about the big picture, again, I dial it back to them as individuals, and, like, the culture that I already saw was being built within Kinjaz, like the whole brotherhood at all costs, you know, that mantra that they started it with. And, you know, now we've evolved that into kin at all costs, because it's bigger than brotherhood. It's family, you know, like, and if you bring family, like, what is family? It's community. It's, you know what I mean? So like, bringing everything back to that was the thing where I felt like that is powerful. And if we preserve that, the possibilities are endless, because that is a human trait, you know. That's a human quality that, like, everybody wants community. They want to belong.
Of course.
And if you belong to the right places, the possibilities are endless. You know, you can go anywhere with that. So I think with that, we're like, let's run with this idea and let's see what we can do. And, like, you know, we started the Kinjaz as a business in 2015. So essentially we're only 4 years old as a company, but
you guys been able to do some incredible things within that 4 years.
I mean, we're global now. We have, you know, studios in China, and, you know, we're building our newest location out in the Arts District in downtown LA right now. That's opening amazing, up early next year. So, you know, and if you had have asked us in 2014, what do you think's going to happen 5 years from now? Like, I don't think we would have said all the stuff that's happening now, you know? We probably would have been like, who knows? Maybe we'll have this, maybe we'll have that. But, like, you know, it's so crazy to see how fast things are moving. But what I love about, you know, our crew, you know, Kinjaz as a crew, and that's the funny thing. It's a business, but it's a crew. So there's like so many dynamics that are involved. But I think the crew side of it is so important, and we do regular things as a crew to make sure that we do our best to preserve just the hominess, you know, of, like, us kicking it, to us having our annual, like, crusade retreats where it's just like the crew gets together and we go out, you know, and we spend, you know, a couple days somewhere.
Be a family.
And I think all of those things are what has been the fuel in our tank, you know, and to keep going. And then we recognize already, you know, like, this is going to be way bigger than Kinjaz. This is for the global dance community to, you know, it's going to have a global impact, you know, and dance is getting so huge now, and it's now being put in spaces where it's being looked at and respected as a legitimate sport, you know, and, you know, breaking, you know, potentially being in the Summer Olympics, you know what I mean, 2024. So like, and Red Bull is now heavily getting into this space. So finally it's getting the exposure, and at least maybe not the exposure, but like the visibility and the perception of it, because people are starting to realize, yo, that actually takes a lot of athleticism and like intellect and mentality, like all these things that are so involved with dance, that is very much the stuff that's, you know, sports. I mean, if you look at skateboarding or snowboarding as a sport, like dance is in that same category, you know what I mean? So it's finally kind of getting there, and to know that Kinjaz is a big part of that forward movement, you know, that's something that's huge for us.
I would never want to compare it, but it reminds me almost like gaming, how gaming has really taken off. It's almost being considered as a sport too. Sponsorships, endorsements, and all that stuff. You know? You know, I'm curious to know too, and this might be a straightforward answer, but how important do you think? How important is it to have that chemistry and relationship with crew members, like, you know, to share that studio, that dance floor, the stage? You know what I'm saying, like on and off. Is it almost similar to like when if you were to have a business? Well, you know, essentially Kinjaz is a business, but like let's just say it's a different business. You know, obviously they need to have that chemistry. They need to be people, you know, like have that culture, that the people person. They need to have the skill sets, all that stuff. Is it the same way on and off, you know, the stage, dancing with them, and then also in the form of a business?
Yeah. That is, I mean, I think I have like two parts in answering that. Like the cultural aspect of any organization is so important, and an organization can be business or it can be just a friend group, you know, that's still an organization. Family's an organization, right? So I think that chemistry that you're talking about, I think, is a lifeline of any organization, because, you know, by definition, organization involves more than one person. You know what I mean? You need at least two people to be considered an organization, right? And so, you know, obviously there's going to be multiple people in a family setting or a, you know, a friend group or a business. And I think what I've learned is that how the why of what you, or why you start anything, you know, the mission statement to what's motivating you to be together, that needs to be so clear from day one. And not to say that it can't evolve, and I think a lot of times it does evolve, and I think evolution of that is healthy, because in nature it would evolve because you realize things are going to be better if it's more this way versus that, you know. So I think there's room for that, but like I think the chemistry, the culture, whether it be a corporate culture or a crew culture or a family culture, I think that's so important to maintain and preserve, because that is like, you know, when you're going so fast, it's easy to lose sight of what are we even going so fast for. So if you don't know what that why is, then you'll look back and be like, I don't remember why we're even doing this, but I guess we're just running. But if you have that why and that core, the mission statement, like the core values, it helps you to like pretty much be a mirror to like, here's what it's supposed to be, here's what it is. Is it matching up, you know? And if it doesn't, it's okay. But like, we know that we have to adjust so that it matches up to why we started this thing. And so I think that's what's really important about, you know, shifting over to like the business side of things. You know, mission statements and core values. I think that's why it's so imperative for those things to be in place, because that is going to essentially be the foundation of whatever you build
everything
from that point on. And those things will need to match the core values and mission statements. And again, you know, companies change their mission statements and core values all the time, But like the reason why they even change is because they're like, okay, we need to redefine why we do what we do. But once we do it, we got to make sure that everything matches up with it.
And they're adapting too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know, I want to bring this up before my next question. What I love about you, bro, is the fact that everything that you just said along your journey, I always comes back to what you keep saying is it's always been bigger than me, and it's always been bigger than us. You know what I'm saying? And I could see like everything your story unfolding, that you clearly, your path is to serve other people. And I see why now. Again, we spoke about it, right? Like why I'm asking these certain questions, because I see now why the community brought you back. You get what I'm saying? Like it's always been about bigger than you, and I love that about you, man. It's definitely admirable for sure. Dude.
Thank you, man.
Dude, what do you think? I'm actually very curious as well, being because I understand. You know, some people out there may not, but I understand the art behind dancing, bro. Like you know, it takes a lot of mental toughness, the physicality of it. And then now it's a business, it's a brand, it's just this whole freaking own world.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you've learned or you see are the biggest misconceptions, or probably the most overlooked things in regards to that whole world? Whether it's like just you being a dancer or you like as a brand itself.
Yeah, I think the perception of dance is, you know, I think maybe for people who don't do it, you know, as a living, or that only kind of they like watching it. I think when you don't do something, it's very easy to think that it's just one thing. It's like, it's just fun. That's easy. I could do that.
Just a hobby.
Yeah, and it involves so much, just as much work and focus and training, time, like as any skill, you know. And if you are a doctor, I would imagine there's a lot of hours that goes into studying, to doing, you know, from, you know, your time as your residency, and there's so much
practice,
like all of those things are like that involves so much time and skill. And I think dance is kind of maybe looked at as like, that's like a fun thing that kids do. And no, I think that it involves a lot of, like, you know, from training to conditioning. And, you know, people think they're like, oh yeah, you're fit because you dance. Like, no, I actually really have to like watch what I eat, to stretch, to work out on top of my dancing, and do physical training that's going to help me perform at a better level with in terms of quickness or agility, stamina, to flexibility. There's so many things that are involved. And so that's why I feel like I view it so similar to any sport, you know what I mean? Like it involves so many different aspects, mental training and, you know, not to mention, like, if you're performing, there's the whole, you know, the nerves of performing, to how do you not let that affect you? So there's a mental, you know, you have to be at a mental ability to be able to perform without being shook in front of an audience, and spatial awareness and all these things. So there's so many elements that go into dance that, you know, that people may not recognize. And I think, and I love when people who don't dance try it, and they'll come and take a class. You know, we offer, you know, beginners, you know,
like workshops and stuff.
Yeah, like classes at our studio, and people will come in. They're like, "Dang, that was hard," you know, and I'm like, "That was beginners." You know what I'm saying?
It's like when it reminds me when I like first took yoga. I'm like, "Holy crap, this thing is nuts, bro!" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I want to dig into your artistic side a little bit, and this might be a hard question. I don't know, to be honest, but what kind of goes? I want to know what goes through your head in the process, like when you go through a choreography. Like what kind of just, I don't know, is it the song? Is it kind of just maybe like you want to try something different? Like what goes through your mind when you're kind of planning or structuring like a choreography?
Yeah, I think creativity is subjective for everyone. Everyone has a different creative process, you know, and you know, some people will have a concept in their mind first before they even have a song in mind. Or, you know, it could be something inspired by anything, whether it's a life event, whether it's a breakup, loss of a family member, being happy because you met the girl of your dreams to whatever, right? Nature. People get inspired by all sorts of different things. For me, most often, and I think this is just kind of how when I started dancing, it was always driven by music first for me.
Yeah.
And, if it was a song, I was like, yo, this song is dope. And then I just kind of find myself like already wanting to move. That already indicates to me like you're vibing with this. So then like now let's start putting actual movement to count so that it becomes essentially choreography, right? So for me, most often it's a piece of music that I'll find that I'm vibing to. And before, I grew up listening to a lot of hip hop. So a lot of the stuff that I would want to move to was like in the hip hop, R&B sort of genre. And, as you develop yourself as an artist, you also don't want to be a one trick pony where like all you do is dance to one specific type of music or you move in only this type of way. So, as I've developed as a dancer, learning different styles to taking classes from people who moved very differently from me, has expanded my own personal vocabulary. So I would now be able to adapt a technique or a mentality, and how does Ben put his twist to that, you know? And then I started to like, let me experiment with a song that I might not normally choreograph to, and just to expand, just to see like, let's see what happens, so that's always fun to do. So I think for me, like it starts with music, and it's always something different depending on what stage of life I'm in. It just so happened to be like, for some reason I'm vibing with this, and so I get into the studio and then I just kind of start freestyling and I just start seeing like, how am I naturally moving to this song? And then if I start hearing certain things within whether it be in the lyrics or whether it be in the instrumentation and the syncopations and stuff like that, I'm like, oh, I want to ride that rhythm, or you know what I mean? So I'll kind of,
oh, this is good, right here,
yeah,
right here.
Yeah. And then, like the reason why I say it's the music, because music, it takes you on a ride, there's like the intro, and then there's a verse, and then there's the chorus, and there's like, like you want to bring the physical movement, you want to bring out the ride of the music, you know what I mean? So I tried to structure in my head too, where like the music amps up here, the movement needs to, essentially embody that, right? So like, I try to structure things in that way too. And so that's kind of like my flow. It happens in the moment.
Yeah.
I'm not super like a planner, and I think there are people who can like sit and like map the whole thing out before they even get up and start moving. I'm like, dang, how did you do that?
Almost like they snapshot it. It's like slow motion type of thing.
Yeah. And that's a different way of creating. I think for me, it's just kind of more in the moment. And then, I've also learned too that not every day and every session is going to be like, I'll find my flow. And sometimes you'll have days where, like, boom, it's done. I cranked it out, and then they'll be like, I can't even get past this first 8 count. You know what I mean? And so I've learned to be
like patient
with my process, and I think to allow myself to be like, cool, I'm gonna put it on the shelf for now, and then I'll come back to it tomorrow, and then we'll pick it back up, and then you'll be able to find that flow there too. So I think that's also something that I've picked up along the way.
That's awesome. It's almost like taking on like almost any task. Like if you take on a task, right? You can't just like, maybe there's urgency, but you could take it on. But if you want it to be perfect and that thing that you want, like, that art, you kind of just got to be patient. Yeah. Like, okay, let me take a break real quick. Right, let me clear my mind and then go back to it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Dude, so we're going to be closing out here real soon. What's, obviously there's a lot of people, aspiring people, trying to get into the industry, entertainment, performing arts, things like that. What's something that you think that you would tell them? Like, I'm sure you get this all the time. Like, hey, you got any advice, Ben? Like, what's something that from all the years you've learned, and then again, Ben evolving, as the artist, the choreographer, the businessman, the man of faith. You know what I mean? What's a couple things that you'd probably tell those people seeking that?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's deep. I think the most important thing to and you don't have to necessarily like have it before you start, because I think you can find it, as you go. But I think at least have the intention to find what your purpose is and your personal purpose. And I think that's something that I've learned even from, one of my mentors, shout out Daniel, Deep Fried Daniel. He asked me, one time, not that long ago, was like, what's your purpose? And I was like, oh, well, Kinjaz is doing this. I've been dancing and like, I want to like, build our organization, da da da. And I went through this whole like 10-minute of like, here's what we're doing. He's like, you didn't answer my question. What's your purpose? Yeah. I was like,
yeah, damn.
Okay. So, I think that's a harder thing to kind of, because you need to take time with yourself, and I think if you have your own, and like I mentioned earlier about mission statements and core values, that's something that's important for, let's say, a business and all, but you need that for yourself. You need a core value system for yourself. You need a mission statement for yourself. Like, what are you here on this earth to do? Mm-hmm. And if you were to ask me that, I'm not going to say like I'm here to like make money and be famous. And I'm like, no, there's a much deeper purpose. And like I said, like my faith rooted in God, like I'm here. And when you said that, like, you can see in me that I have a desire to serve people. And I think for me, that is a big part of my purpose is to serve. But like, how am I going to serve? What am I here? What is my unique skill? What are my unique traits that I'm able to do in and of, like, not say like I do it because I've created it for myself, but like, what do I uniquely bring into every room?
Yeah. What's the details of it?
Yeah. And so I think if you really search out your personal purpose, that will be your compass. That will be your true north. So whether it's a career path, it could be in any field, entertainment, whatever, like it could be in any field. If you have a clear understanding of what your purpose is, you'll always be able to be like, does this match up with what I am here to do? If it's yes, then go for it. Yeah. If it's no, then let's figure out, let's recalibrate, and then let me see where I can point myself in a different direction. And also be patient with yourself, because finding purpose it's not like something you just like, let me think about it, got it, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
Exactly what you said, like it's okay if you don't know it right now.
Yeah, but at least be on the path to intentionally pursue finding it. Yeah, I think that's very important.
Dude, I love it, man. Dude, that's very powerful, dude. As we close out here, I don't know, I feel like you want to say more. Is there something else you want to say just before we end? And I've actually never done this on a podcast episode.
No, it's all good, man. Yeah. Well, one, man, thank you for having me, man. Like I think this platform of podcasts, as we were saying earlier, it's a great way for people to be reached in a authentic, unfiltered, way. And I think, the reason why, for myself, like, we started the Kinjaz podcast, and our product or our service is dance. People come and we perform, and people are entertained by the content that we put out. We teach people, through our studios. So that's kind of our product. But then I think mentality is a little bit harder to find by watching a YouTube video of us dancing, or even attending one of our classes, because we only have an hour and a half to teach. People want to learn moves. They don't want to necessarily hear someone talk for an hour and a half. But I think mentality is so important in terms of finding the purposes and finding what are the processes of why you do what you do, how you create what you create, what's your mission, what are you trying to do, how are you trying to use that and impact the world in this way or that. A platform like this is great to unravel that messaging, Absolutely. And unpack all of that. So what you're doing here with the Parables Pod, man, like, shout out to you. And I think for whoever's watching or listening, I think there's a lot of great information out there. I wasn't a big reader growing up as a kid. I think people learn in different ways, but I love listening, and I love hearing the stories of how people have gotten to where they're at. And I think, a platform like this is great for people to be able to essentially get the secrets, you know what I mean? Like they say that success leaves clues. And so, whether it's somebody that you look up to in business, or whether it's somebody that you look up to in life, if you admire something about a person, look at what they do in their life. You know,
take note of it, man.
Yeah, look at the things that they talk about, the practices, the routines that they implement, and you'll be able to find ways of how they are the way that they are, and that's probably why you admire them. So I just thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my story. I am a talker, so if you're 60 minutes in now, you're still listening. Shout out to you.
I appreciate you coming on the Parables, brother. Bro. Ben Chung, aka BTek in the building, dude. Yes, for everybody out there who wants to reach out to you, where can they find you? Best way.
Kinjaz, at Kinjaz, we're everywhere. Kinjaz. We're on IG, YouTube. Find us there. I host a Kinjaz podcast. Is at Kinjaz Podcast, cast with a K. My personal IG, BTek, BTEK _Ben Chung, BENCHUNG. I'm on IG, Twitter. I don't know if people still use Twitter. I'm on TikTok. TikTok's the new thing, man.
I just started that thing, yeah.
If you guys aren't on TikTok, you need to get on there.
Especially dancers, too, right?
Yeah, and it's gonna evolve. Watch the platform. It's gonna grow. So follow me on TikTok. Same handle, BTek _Ben Chung, Kinjaz.com. That's about it.
Oh, man, I appreciate you, brother. Guys, if you guys find inspiration on this episode, all that I ask, I don't run ads. All that I ask is if you could please share it with somebody. If you're listening to me and Ben's episode, take a screenshot. Let us know that you're watching. Tag us and repost, and we'll show you love back. And Ben, I don't know if you know, but well, clearly you do. Got to have you sign the infamous canvas, brother.
Yeah, I'm going to hit it up, man. Hit it up.
I appreciate you, dude. Yeah. Thanks again for coming on the podcast. Sure. Yeah. Hey, guys, if you guys are interested also, I do have merch. If you want to do that, shop.ejcruise.com. But otherwise, no obligation. The fact that you guys are just listening is all that we ask. Again, our goal here is to share some wisdom, some inspiration through our conversation. If you could just share it with anybody, we would appreciate it. Also, if you have the time, if you could leave a rating and write a review on iTunes, we greatly appreciate it. It helps with visibility. And again, our goal is just to inspire and add value to the world. Ben Chung, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Yeah. We are out of here.
Peace out.